is not just a geographical place or a political status or social class. It is conceived as an event, a dream, a happening, a culture. The term village does not imply an entity, but a set of values to live by. The reference is J.D. Sethi, Gandhian Values and 20th Century Challenges, published in 1979. He knew that millions will always remain poor, but this poverty must not lead to deprivation. It must be absorbed by all. Poverty must be absorbed by all. He thought it important that everybody decides to refrain from luxuries and pleasure. But the irony is that some roll in luxury and pleasure, whereas millions roll in misery and abject poverty. In the philosophical tradition of India and the West, we have at least 4 definitions or characterizations of knowledge. Number 1, knowledge is virtue. To know what virtue is to do virtuous acts. That is Socrates. Number 2, knowledge is power. To know the mechanism of nature is to control nature. That is Francis Bacon. Number 3, knowledge is liberation. Buddhism, Jainism, Sankhya, Vaisheshika. Number 4, to know is to be. Brahmavit Brahmeva Bhavati. That is Advaita Vedanta. So the first 2 belong to the Western tradition, whereas the last 2 belong to the Indian tradition. Gandhi offers a characterization of knowledge which eludes our careful attention, as he does not dilate upon it, does not expand it, and he is not expected to expand it because he does not happen to be an academic philosopher. His simple adage is, I quote, "So doing, we know ourselves," unquote. So doing, we know ourselves. That is, self-knowledge ensues when we do our duty. That is, when we act morally. Action is much better than speech, he reiterates. Self-knowledge is the highest knowledge, prajnana. And this is what is declared loudly by the Upanishads in India. Atmanam vidhi. And by Socrates in ancient Greece also, know thyself. Gandhi's adage appears to me to have synthesized all the definitions and characterizations of knowledge stated above. It is enlightening to know that the Gujarati equivalent for civilization means, or civilization is, good conduct. Ordinarily, we make a distinction between civilization and culture in this way. Culture is what we are, and civilization is what we have. But according to Gandhi, civilization is good conduct. Time and again, Gandhi equates duty with God. Hence, when he lashes at the Western civilization as being godless, he says that Western civilization is godless. When he says this, we can say that people prospering in Western civilization do not do their duty properly, do not do what a human being ought to do. This civilization installs impediments on the path of doing what ought to be done. ଯେମିତି ହିନ୍ଦୀରେ କହନ୍ତି ଅଡଙ୍ଗା ସୃଷ୍ଟି କରିବା, ଯୋଉଟା ଭଲ କାମ କରିବା କଥା ସେଠି ଅଡଙ୍ଗା ସୃଷ୍ଟି କରିବା ହଉଛି ପାଶ୍ଚାତ୍ୟ ସଭ୍ୟତା. Some of the stubborn impediments that Gandhi could perceive in Hind Swaraj are, ସେଇ ଅଡଙ୍ଗା ଗୁଡା ସବୁ କଣ? ଅନ୍ତତଃ 10ଟା ଅଡଙ୍ଗାର ଚିତ୍ର ଆମେ ଦବା. Number 1, use of machines to acquire wealth. Number 2, press button technology to get things done. ବୋତାମ ଚିପିଦେଲେ ଟଙ୍କା ଆସି ପହଞ୍ଚିଗଲା ଏଟିଏମ୍ ମେସିନରେ. ଥିଙ୍ଗସ୍ ଡନ୍, ବୋତାମ ଟିପିଦେଲୁ ତାର ପଥର ଚୁରିକି ବାଲି ହେଇଗଲା. Number 3, anything that is written is printed and circulated. Number 4, quick transportation of men and materials. Number 5, easy way of taking away life by a machine gun. ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ସବୁ ଖଞ୍ଜା ହଉଛି, ତୃତୀୟ ବିଶ୍ୱଯୁଦ୍ଧ ଲାଗିବାର ଘନଘଟା ସୃଷ୍ଟି ହେଇଛି. Number 6, rapid spread of diseases. ଏଗୁଡ଼ା ସବୁ impediment. Number 7, unhealthy food habits. ଜଙ୍କ ଫୁଡ୍ ଖାଇବା କଥା କୁହାଯାଉଛି ସବୁ. ଗାନ୍ଧୀ ତାକୁ ସବୁ ପରିଚୟ କରିଥିଲେ. Number 8, establishment of hospitals. ଇଏ ବି ଗୋଟେ ଅଡଙ୍ଗା. Number 9, establishment of law courts. And number 10, faulty system of education. ଏଗୁଡ଼ା ସବୁ ସିନା ଟିକେ ଟିକେ କହିଦେଲି, ପ୍ରତ୍ୟେକକୁ ବୁଝେଇବା ପାଇଁ ସମୟ ଦରକାର ଏବଂ ଧୈର୍ଯ୍ୟ ଦରକାର. ତେଣୁକରି ପିଲାମାନଙ୍କ ଉପରେ ତକ ଛାଡି ଦିଆଯାଉଛି, ସେ ନିଜ ସ୍ୱାଧ୍ୟାୟ ବଳରେ କିଛି ଏବଂ ଆତ୍ମଚିନ୍ତନ ବଳରେ କିଛି ଏସବୁ କଣ ବୁଝିବା ପାଇଁ ଚେଷ୍ଟା କରିବେ. Gandhi declares machinery is the chief symbol of modern civilization. At the same time, he cautions that it represents a great sin. The machines, they represent a great sin, papa. It is pertinent to remind here that the 21st century was greeted in India by the introduction of computers, Shatabdi trains, and vending machines. They are compatible with one another, but not compatible with our civilization, as they do away with human labor, human dignity, and human freedom, and lead to heavy and fast depletion of natural resources that sustain life on the earth, and finally, unemployment of human resources. What has happened during the last 2 or 3 decades in this country here, there, and everywhere are matters of serious concern to everybody. Gandhi envisaged this more than a century back. They wished to convert the whole world into a vast market for their goods. They will leave no stone unturned to reach the goal, Gandhi says. But nobody is prepared to cry a halt to this catastrophic development and lunatic progress. ये पागल विकासपणର କୌଣସି ଅନ୍ତ ନାହିଁ, କି ତାକୁ ଅଟକଉନି, ସେ ବିଷୟରେ କି ଭାବୁ ହିଁ ନାହିଁ. They provide a ନ୍ୟୁ ମେସିନ୍ ହେଉଛି ବୁଲେଟ ଟ୍ରେନ୍. ଗାନ୍ଧୀ କହୁଛନ୍ତି କେମିତି ଭାଷାରେ, just as that is matter misplaced, ଧୂଳି, just as that is matter misplaced, reason misplaced is lunacy. Truth, according to Gandhi, is much more than could be grasped by science and reason. But then critics like Bhikhu Parekh point out that Gandhi overlooks many strong points of modern civilization, like the scientific and critical spirit of inquiry, its human control over natural world, and its organizational capacity. Bhikkhu Parekh Gandhi, a very short introduction, ବହିରେ କହୁଛନ୍ତି କଥା। ଆମେ କହିବାକୁ ଚାହିଁବା ଯେ such critics seek to reject the basic teachings of Gandhi outright and are thus unreasonable for not getting any limit to reason. In an article entitled Interpreting Gandhi's Hind Swaraj, Rudolf C. Heredia says that Gandhi's anti-modernism was ahead of his time. ସେଟା 1969 Economic and Political Weekly କହିଥିଲେ. I think that it is still ahead of our time. It is pathetic that the systems which the Europeans have discarded are the systems in vogue in our country. ସେ ଯୋଉଗୁଡାକ ଛାଡି ଫୋପାଡି ଯାଉଥିବେ ସେଗୁଡାକ ଆମେ ନୂଆ ବୋଲି କୋଳେଇ ନଉଥିବା. They have learned to continually make changes in the system for whatever worth that might be, but we ignorantly adhere to their caste of systems and bring in their caste of technologies. The machine that is ultra-modern today is outdated tomorrow, and the outdated technology of the West is received as the ultra-modern technology at our end. So Gandhi's categorical call is drive out Western civilization, all else will follow. Chari 8 that is sentence, drive out Western civilization, all else will follow. That is Hind Swaraj. He has justification for this. I quote a few lines. This civilization takes notes neither of morality nor of religion. Immorality is often taught in the name of morality. This civilization makes the human animal half mad. They lack real physical strength and courage. They keep up their energy by intoxication. They can hardly be happy in solitude. ଯେତେବେଳେ କୋଭିଡ ହେଇଥିଲା ଅମାନିଆ ମାନେ କେମିତି ବାହାରେ ଯାଇକି ଗହଳି କରୁଥିଲେ ବିଶେଷ କରି ମଦ ଦୋକାନ ଆଗରେ, ଏଇଟା ପ୍ରମାଣ. Women who should be the queens of households wander in the streets or they slave away in factories. ବହୁତ ଟାଣ ଭାଷାରେ ଏବଂ ସହଜ ଭାବରେ ଗାନ୍ଧୀ କହୁଛନ୍ତି, civilization is like a mouse knowing while it is soothing us. ଗୋଡ ପାଖରେ ହାତ ପାଖରେ ଗୋଟେ ମୂଷା ଛୁଆ ଚାଲିଗଲେ ସଲସଲ ଲାଗେ, କାହିଁକିନା ମୂଷା ଛୁଆ ଦେହଟା ଭାରି କଅଁଳିଆ, କିନ୍ତୁ ତା ସାଙ୍ଗେ ସାଙ୍ଗେ ସେ ତା ଦାନ୍ତରେ ମାଉଁସ ରାମ୍ପି ରାମ୍ପିକି ଚାଲିଯାଏ. It is a disease. There is no end to the victims destroyed in the fire of civilization. Its deadly effect is that people come under its scorching flames, believing it to be all good. They become utterly irreligious and in reality derive little advantage from the world. ଏଇଠି ଗୋଟେ ବାକ୍ୟ କହୁଛନ୍ତି ଯୋଉଟା ଅତି ଭାରି କଡା ବାକ୍ୟ ଗୋଟେ, ବହୁତ କଥା ସେଥିରେ ବିଚାରଣୀୟ. Machinery is like a snake hole, ଗୋଟେ ସାପ ଗାତ ସେଇଟା, which may contain from 1 to 100 snakes. ଗୋଟେ ମେସିନାରୀ ଏମ୍ପ୍ଲୟ କଲେ ତା ସାଙ୍ଗରେ ଆହୁରି 10ଟା ମେସିନାରୀ ଆସିଥିବ. ସେଥିପାଇଁ କହୁଛି ମେସିନାରୀ ହଉଛି ଗୋଟେ ସାପ ଗାତ ଯୋଉଥିରେ 1ରୁ ଆରମ୍ଭ କରିକି 100 ସାପ ଥାନ୍ତି. According to Gandhi's perception, it is machinery that has impoverished India. It should never be forgotten that the English are at present means first decade of the 20th century, affected by it. Now means third decade of the 21st century, Bartaman, India is affected by, nay, India is not affected, India is suffering from it. It is not that we did not know how to invent machinery, but our forefathers knew that if we set our hearts after such things, we would become slaves and lose our moral fiber. They therefore after due deliberation, decided that we should only do what we could with our hands and feet. They saw that our real happiness and health consisted in a proper use of our hands and feet. They further reasoned that large cities were a snare, paso, and a useless encumbrance, bojo, and that people would not be happy in them, that there would be gangs of thieves and robbers, prostitution and vice flourishing in them, and those poor men would be robbed by rich men. They were therefore satisfied with small villages. But civilization is not an incurable disease. Gandhi is sanguine, very sure that this civilization will be destroyed by its own weight. What Gandhi said about newspapers applies to print media and electronic media alike. According to him, newspapers have three objectives. Number one, to understand popular feelings and to give expressions to it. Number two, to arouse among people with certain desirable sentiments. And number three, to expose fearlessly popular defects. Media partners today have three different objectives. Number one, to break news ahead of competing partners in a story format. ମାନେ ବ୍ରେକ୍ ନ୍ୟୁଜ୍ ଗୁଡା ପୁରୁଣା ହେଇଗଲାଣି। ଏବେ ମୁଁ କାଲି ଦେଖିଲି ଗୋଟେ କୋଉ ଚ୍ୟାନେଲ ଲେଖିଥିଲା ସୁପର ବ୍ରେକ୍ ନ୍ୟୁଜ୍, ଖାଲି ବ୍ରେକ୍ ହେଲା ବେଳକୁ ହଉନି ସେ। With catchy captions incorporating comments from the horse's mouth exclusive to it, ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କ ସବୁ exclusive to ଆମେ ତାକୁ exclusively record କରିଛୁ। Smartly mixing their own views that way more than news, ସେ ଲେଖିବେ ଯେ we report you decide, କିନ୍ତୁ ସେ report decision ସବୁ ଏକା ବେଳକୁ ଆସିଥାଏ ମିଶିକିରି, and go on churning the same till a new story comes up। ସକାଳୁ ଗୋଟେ ସନସନି ଖବର ଆରମ୍ଭ ହେଇଗଲା କି ସେ ରାତି ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଚାଲିଥିବ, ଯଦି ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ନୂଆ ଖବର ମିଳିଗଲା ତାପରେ ଯାଇକି ସେଇଟା ପୁଣି ଧରିବେ। Number two, to publicize boldly how its news had impact in the expected quarter। ଆମର ପ୍ରଭାବ, ସମାଜର ପ୍ରଭାବ, ଅମକ ଟିଭିର ପ୍ରଭାବ, ମୋ ଟିଭିର ପ୍ରଭାବ। And number three, to add the most number of advertisements of anything and everything and swell its income। ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଏଇ ତିନିଟା ହେଇଛି ତାଙ୍କ ଲକ୍ଷ୍ୟ। ଯୋଉ ତିନିଟା ପୂର୍ବରୁ ଥିଲା ସେ ତିନିଟା ରିପ୍ଲେସ ହେଇଯାଇଛି। Gandhi has serious misgivings about railways, lawyers, and doctors that, in his view, have impoverished the country so much so that if we do not wake up in time, we shall be ruined. Railways believe in distinctions and are responsible for rapid spread of diseases like plague, COVID add କରାଯାଇ ପାରିବ, increase in the frequency of famines, accentuation of the evil of the nature of man, visit of holy places by unholy characters, and propagation of evil। ହରିଦ୍ୱାରରେ ପକେଟ ମାରୁ, ଋଷିକେଶରେ ହତ୍ୟା, ଏଗୁଡ଼ା ଯେମିତି ସବୁ ସେଇ କଥା। Gandhi is very optimistic about our state of being in spite of infidelity of persons holding the reign of power. India is still somehow or other sound at the foundation. He continues, I quote, "It is a charge against India that her people are so uncivilized, ignorant, and stolid that it is not possible to induce them to adopt any changes. It is a charge really against our merit. What we have tested and found true on the anvil of experience, we dare not change. Many thrust their advice upon India, and she remains steady. This is her beauty. It is the seat anchor of our hope." ଗାନ୍ଧୀଙ୍କର ଏଟା ଆଶାବାଦ ଯାହା ହେଲେ ବି we can recoil, we can stand on our own feet. According to Mahatma Gandhi, to understand is to believe, and to believe is to live by the beliefs. Gandhi stands for moral action which has no place for exercise of force or violence. But we must be very cautious in saying this. Speaking precisely, what Gandhi disdains the most is not violence, but cowardice and apathy. John Galtung, an eminent peace researcher, observes that Gandhi's first preference is non-violent resistance. Second is violence in a just cause. And third, the least of all, apathy. But the moral imperative that immoral means, like violence, cannot produce moral ends, as means are themselves the ends or ends in the making, is not compromised thereby. It rather gets fortified. Non-violent resistance is passive resistance. Gandhian philosophy can be encapsulated in the following three principles. Number one, the complete unity and integrity of body, mind, and soul in the individual human being. Number two, all social actions to be guided by the same sort of moral values of which the main elements are selflessness, non-attachment, non-violence, and active service. Number three, no society, state, or any other institution has any significance apart from its contribution to the growth of the individuals composing it. This philosophy generates a two-pronged force that seeks to transform the individual and society simultaneously, not one after the other. Gandhi did not construct a system of philosophy, as we know. He was concerned mainly with applying the ideals and principles that had become a part of his life. Therefore, he does not make an explicit distinction between the ideal and its application. We discover this only when we study his ideas in proper context against the backdrop of the philosophy enshrined in the Vedas and the Upanishads. Out of context, his ideas sometimes produce the impression of inconsistency. Read in the context, they form a coherent whole. He may therefore not appear to be consistent with his previous statements, but he is, in his own words, consistent with truth as it may present itself at a given moment. The ultimate ideal for Gandhi, as he repeated several times, is undualized and undualizable. Its value consists in pointing out the direction. According to him, there must always be an unbridgeable gulf between the ideal and its practice. The ideal will cease to be one if it becomes possible to realize it. He argues, I quote, "Where would there be room for that constant striving, that ceaseless quest after the ideal that is the basis of all spiritual progress, if mortals could reach the perfect state while still in the body?" The very essence of Gandhi's philosophy is to make a constant striving after the ideal. Hence, to the extent we make this effort, we realize the ideal to that extent. In the ideal society, there is no room for the military and the police. There is harm in the exercise of brute force. It in the actual state, there is provision for it according to the moral levels of its citizens. Unavoidable use of force is but a necessary evil. That is to say, a predominantly non-violent state is the practical possibility and is the second best ideal of Gandhi. The more the individual imbibe the spirit of non-violence, the less the necessity of the state. So this is the implication of Gandhi's concept of Swaraj. It is developing ideal and is better than the best. Gandhi calls it indefinable, anirvachaniya. Swaraj for Gandhi is a revolutionary idea that encompasses all spheres of life, including predominantly individual, political, and economic. For him, Swaraj will be people meant the sum total of the Swaraj of individuals, and so he clarified that for him, Swaraj meant freedom for the meanest of his countrymen. And in its fullest sense, Swaraj is much more than freedom from all restraints. It is self-rule, self-restraint, and could be equated with moksha or salvation. Quoted by MP Mathai in Young India, published on 18/12/1920. The title is What Swaraj Meant to Gandhi. It is Swaraj when we learn to rule ourselves. Real home rule is self-rule or self-control. It is possible only where passive resistance is the guiding force of the people. Any other rule is foreign rule. Such Swaraj has to be experienced by each one for himself. If man will only realize that it is unmanly to obey laws that are unjust, no man's tyranny will enslave him. Very important lines really at all segment of time. This is the key to self-rule or home rule. The way to it is passive resistance, that is soul force or love force. The force of love and pity is infinitely greater than the force of arms. If we do not pay heed to Gandhi's diagnosis and prognosis projected in Hind Swaraj, then we cannot avoid the socio-political turbulence and violent activities that is rampant everywhere. Amartya Sen puts it rightly. I quote, one does not have to be a Gandhi to understand that one's objectives and priorities could stretch well beyond the narrow limits of one's own personal well-being, unquote. That is the idea of justice. Sen makes a distinction between Nyaya and Niti. Niti, that is the formal provision of law books alone, cannot sustain democracy and deliver justice. Nyaya has to be taken into account. Niti is bereft of moral consideration, but Nyaya is precisely grounded on that and goes beyond Niti. But I may venture to say that Gandhi's concept of duty that he equates with God and truth takes both Nyaya and Niti in its stride. A Gandhian need not make such a distinction between Nyaya and Niti. A new social order could be outlined in accordance with the above in the following way. Number one, the minimization of competition and exploitation in the economic sphere, and instead the encouragement of cooperation. Number two, production on the basis of need rather than greed, concentrating where India is concerned first on the eradication of poverty. Number three, recognition of the dignity of labor and the greater purity of rural life. Number four, the practice of extensive self-reliance by individuals, villages, regions, and the nation. Number five, absence of oppression on the basis of race, caste, class, language, gender, or religion. Number six, a deep respect for Mother Nature, necessitating an economic system based upon the preservation rather than destruction of the natural environment. Individuals are the target of change, and individuals constitute the center of all change. Practice of ahimsa, according to Gandhi, is for individuals to attain. Greed, pilfering, untruth, crooked diplomacy are signs or results of violence, of violent thought and violent action. Individuals in the field of politics must be honest to the core. In a letter to Srinivas Shastri, Gandhi says, quote, highest honesty must be introduced in the political life of the country if we are to make our mark as a nation, unquote. There are different intellectual professions in every organized society with the assignment of specific duties to perform. Ruskin names 5 of them out, but there could be more. However, all men in the professions must perform their assigned duties within the framework of moral law, and they must be prepared to die for it in due occasion. They have to apply all their sagacity and energy to produce the thing he or she deals with in perfect state and distribute the same at the cheapest possible price where it is needed the most. There should not be any deterioration, adulteration, or unjust or exorbitant price for the product. He or she must meet fearlessly any distress, poverty of labor which might come upon him in the process. In his review of Ruskin's book is named On to This Last. Gandhi reviews this book. Gandhi captures in a nutshell the view regarding the Western attitude towards life that we are now emulating more and more day by day. It is a general view of the Westerner that the promotion of happiness of the majority of mankind, that is the greatest good of the greatest number, as the articulated theory of utilitarianism puts it, that is the be all and the end all of man. What is this happiness? It is sensate happiness with economic prosperity subservient to it. This. It matters little if the laws of morality are broken in its pursuit. This happiness can be secured by sacrificing a minority. Gandhi makes it clear that the Western culture is based on violence. Discrimination and exploitation are the chief forms of violence. It does not respect all life, and it is in its march of progress, it does not hesitate to wholesale destruction or even human life. ଯୁଦ୍ଧର ଉଦାହରଣ ଦଉଥିଲି ରଷିଆ ସେପଟେ କଣ ସେ ଯୋଉ ୟୁରୋପିଆନ କଣ୍ଟ୍ରିଜ ଅଛି ସେପଟେ ଆମେରିକା ଏ ଯୋଉ ଛକାଛକି ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ରହିଛନ୍ତି ସେଥିରୁ ୟାର ପ୍ରମାଣ ମିଳେ। ଅସ୍ତ୍ରଶସ୍ତ୍ର ବିକିକିରି ଗୋଟେ ଗୋଟେ କଣ୍ଟ୍ରି ତାଙ୍କର ଇକୋନୋମି ମେଣ୍ଟେନ କରୁଛନ୍ତି। It does not respect all life, and in its march of progress, it does not hesitate to wholesale destruction of even human life. ପୁତିନ କାଲି ଗୋଟେ ସୁଟକେସ୍ ଧରି ବୁଲୁଥିଲେ, ଲେଖିଥିଲା ଗୋଟେ ଚ୍ୟାନେଲ ଯେ ଏଇଥିରେ ସାରା ପୃଥିବୀ ଧ୍ୱଂସ ହେଇଯିବାର ସୁଇଚ ଅଛି। History bears ample evidence to Gandhi's observation. Western culture is highly individualistic, and it believes in the motto, might is right. It seeks to acquire and enhance money power. Economics paradigm as a science dictates how to do this in rapid pace. This is a wrong-headed conception insofar as it restricts the objectivity of man to the satisfaction of physical needs. There is accumulation of wealth with some accompanied by ignoring others' needs. This is denial of the cardinal human values like justice, righteousness, freedom, and dignity, which everybody is entitled to by virtue of being born as a man. Every man has a right to be happy, but this right is trammeled over by the mighty. Radhakrishnan rightly observes, quote a few lines, though the right to happiness is clearly implicit in the creation of humankind, we have allowed that right to be neglected and suffused our energy to be used in the pursuit of power and wealth by the happiness of the many is sacrificed to the doubtful satisfaction of a few. ଲେଖିଛନ୍ତି ରାଧାକୃଷ୍ଣନ ଗୋଟେ ବହି ନାଁ ହେଉଛି ମହାତ୍ମା ଗାନ୍ଧୀ। People would be happy to the extent they learn to do justice and righteousness to others. For Gandhi, classical economics has two branches. This is important: political economy and mercantile economy. Political economy consists simply in the production, preservation, and distribution of useful or pleasurable things at the appropriate time and place. It adds continually to the riches and well-being of the nation to which they belong. As against this, mercantile economy signifies the accumulation in the hands of individuals of legal claim upon or power over the labor of others. The result is that there are riches or right to riches on the one side and as much poverty or debt Karaja on the other. Economics in this way is not only the art of accumulating money for ourselves, but also of contriving that our neighbors shall have less. ଆମେ କେବଳ ବଡ଼ ଲୋକ ହବୁ ନୁହଁ, ଆମ ପଡ଼ୋଶୀ ଦରିଦ୍ରରୁ ଦରିଦ୍ରତର ହବ. Riches are a power like that of electricity. Sorry. Riches ହଉଛି electricity ଭଳିଆ ଗୋଟେ power acting only through inequalities or negation of itself. Real property is empty if it does not command power over labor. An economics that inculcates mammon worship, mammon टंका पैसा धन रत्न, mammon worship, and enables the strong to amass wealth at the expense of the weak is a false and dismal science. Original legendary Mahatma Gandhi. The present day costly business management studies are precisely teaching this art. True economy is the economy of justice. True economy never militates against the highest ethical standards. This is how Amartya Sen views the field of economics. What is the ethical standard that Gandhi speaks about? It is unique. It does not come under any of the Western theories of ethical standard exclusively. I quote, purity of means for noble ends. This is the principle. Purity of means for noble ends is the ethical standard for Gandhi. This constitutes the vision for a nation to chart the path of progress and mission for the individual to live a life of happiness. The nation should implement plans to raise the standard of life of individuals, and the individuals should raise the self-esteem of the nation by restricting, not multiplying their wants. Moreover, every human invention is the benefit of all. जर्मनी उद्भावन ହେଇଛି, ଜର୍ମାନୀ ରହିବ, ତାର କପିରାଇଟ୍ ସେଇଟା, ତାର ପ୍ରପର୍ଟି ରାଇଟ୍ ସେଇଟା ନା, ଜର୍ମାନୀ ଉଦ୍ଭାବନ ହଉ କି ଇଣ୍ଡିଆର ଉଦ୍ଭାବନ ହଉ, ସେଟା ସବୁ ଏଣ୍ଟାୟାର ହ୍ୟୁମାନିଟି ପାଇଁ. Not for the nation in which it happens to be made first. In contrast with the Western motto, human wants are insatiable and its evil consequences, the motto which India holds before us is the good and enrichment of all, including every living and non-living thing. Sabka Vikas. It urges to act on moral power rather than money power, which brings riches to the few at the cost of others. In this background, Gandhi composed his vision plan of India in Hind Swaraj in 1908. About 38 years later, in October 1945, when the independence of India was in sight, Jawaharlal Nehru found faults with it in a letter to Gandhi. Almost the same faults as we point out in the academic discussion on Gandhi now and again. Gandhi wrote to Nehru about the difference in their outlook. He wrote, I am convinced that if India is to attain true freedom and through India, the world also, then sooner or later, the fact must be recognized that people have to live in villages, not in towns, in huts, not in palaces. Crores of people will never be able to live at peace with each other in towns and palaces. They will then have no recourse but to resort to both violence and untruth. I hold that without truth and non-violence, there can be nothing but destruction for humanity. We can realize truth and non-violence only in the simplicity of village life, and this simplicity can best be found in the charkha and all the charkha connotes. Gandhi. The essence of Hind Swaraj, as recounts and reiterates, is that man should not rest content with what are his real needs to become self-sufficient. If he does not have this control, he cannot save himself. It is important that the village of his dream is not the then village life. His ideal village is inhabited by free and intelligent human beings. The village is not dirty and dark. There is no plague, cholera, or smallpox, or COVID, we may add. No one there is idle, and no one wallows in luxury. Everyone contributes his quota of manual labor. Railways, post, and telegraph facilities would be there. He was averse to railways previously. He could have perhaps said computers, internet, gyms, and universities, but not hospitals, ATMs, shopping malls, pizza huts, and beauty parlors. এটা ଥିଲା ଗାନ୍ଧୀଙ୍କର କଥା। ଗାନ୍ଧୀଙ୍କୁ ନେହେରୁ କେମିତି ଅପୋଜ କଲେ? ଏଇ ଡିବେଟଟା କରିକିରି ସାରିଦବା, ଯଦି ଆହୁରି କିଛି କହିବାକୁ ଥିଲା ଏତିକି କରିକି ସାରିବା। In reply to Gandhi's letter, Nehru wrote back, a village, normally speaking, is backward intellectually and culturally, and no progress can be made from a backward environment. Narrow-minded people are much more likely to be untruthful and violent. Nehru कहले. He pointed out that sufficiency of food, clothing, housing, education, sanitation as a minimum requirements for everyone and attaining the same speedily. He felt the inevitability of having the modern means of transport, air travel, etc., and other modern developments. There is also need of luxury industries, heavy industries. Nehru's contention is that these would not fit in with a poorly village society. Protection from foreign aggression is an important concern. Technical advancement is a must to meet this. Moreover, people must have up-to-date homes, cultured existence. In Swaraj, in his perception, is completely unreal. Nehru's perception de in Swaraj is completely unreal. One must keep in view the present facts, forces, and the human material that we have today. We can see here a class of perceptions, idealistic and pragmatic. There cannot be choice in favor of the one or the other. हम यदि कहे के ठीक के भूल को डिसाइड कर परिवानी. Critical thinking is necessary to weigh the contentions of the conflicting perceptions. Gandhi wrote another letter to Nehru after holding a personal discussion with him. Gandhi argued that there could be equal right and opportunity for all men's highest intellectual, economic, political, and moral development. That is, inequality should be there between town dwellers and the villagers in the standards of food and drink, clothing, and other living conditions. To achieve this, people should be able to produce for themselves the necessities of life, that is, clothing, foodstuff, dwelling, lighting, and water. People should be able to produce. No one should ride on another's back. जने आउ गोटे का पिठे चढ़ी जीवा से करियोनी हमर वर्तन से ही अभ्यास कार गोटे पिठी मिल गले खोजी की नथिले खोजी की बाहर करे पड़ियो जा पिठे चढ़ी के हम जीवु. There should be self-sufficient units of habitation bound together with the bounds of mutual cooperation and interaction. If we read Gandhi's views sympathetically, we would see that he does not overlook what Nehru anticipates. Gandhi's village would be neither a village nor a town as they are ordinarily found. It might well be a town village, but not a global village. Town village has a moral foundation. Global village has a mercantile economic foundation. Gandhi writes in the conclusion of his paraphrase of John Ruskin's onto this last. I quote a few lines and I will end here. India must indeed have Swaraj, but she must have it by righteous methods. Our Swaraj must be real Swaraj, which cannot be attained by either violence or industrialization. If every Indian sticks to truth, Swaraj will come to us of its own accord. That is from Selected Works of Mahatma Gandhi, Volume 4. So, with this, there are other things. I will not go into those things. The total evaluation is there about his ideas. or I shall go on. I may take 5 to 7 minutes. Should I do that? ଦୀପକ ସମୟ ମିଳିବ? ମୋ କଥା ତ ଶୁଭୁନି ନା କଣ କାହାକୁ? ଆଉ ଶୁଭୁଛି କି?
ହଁ ସାର୍ ଶୁଭୁଛି।
ଆପଣ ହଁ ସାର୍ ଶୁଭୁଛି। ହେଲୋ ପ୍ଲିଜ ସାର୍ ଗୋ କ୍ୟାରି ଅନ୍ ସାର୍ ପ୍ଲିଜ।
ଆଚ୍ଛା ତାହେଲେ ମୁଁ 5-7 ନେଇଯାଉଛି ଆଉ। If the idealism of Gandhi does not have many genuine customers here, the black holes of Nehru's pragmatism stare at its customers. Swami Ranganathananda sees the remedy of the present malady in Gandhian voice. A quote from Ranganathananda ji. Modern world conditions created by science and technology call for the transformation of energies of hatred and violence, competition and strife into the moral forces of cooperation and service, love and peace. The moral education of modern man, in step with his intellectual attainments and technical achievements, is the most urgent task facing human today. Unquote. That is eternal values for changing society. Ranganathananda ji. The mainstay of India's existence is agriculture. India cannot thrive and prosper without this. Sri Aurobindo observes, I quote, agriculture is the mainstay. The community must try to be self-reliant with regard to food, unquote. Gandhi saw this very clearly. Radhakrishnan puts Gandhi's perception in an emphatic way thus, I quote, the bulk of India's population must get back to the land, stay in the land, and live primarily off the produce of the land so that their families may be self-supporting, owning the implements they use, the soil they cultivate, and the roof that shelters them. Both the state and the citizens must ensure the development of agriculture first and foremost. Radhakrishnan, in his assessment of Gandhi's views on religion and politics, points out that Gandhi is the representative of the peasant. But he, means Gandhi, does not aim at a peasant society which will forego altogether the benefits of machine. In fact, Gandhi is not against large-scale production in cities, but under his scheme, nothing will be allowed to be produced by cities which can be equally well produced by the villages. Villages जोड़ा produce करो उसका city produce होगा. The proper function of cities is to serve as clearing houses for village products. In a highly industrialized society, man's natural creative impulses are suppressed, and the sense of satisfaction in the workplace is next to nil. Their minds act like machines and act as living organisms. Life becomes tiresome and people take a wild form of compensation for excitement and vital experience. As per the Gandhian agenda, factories run by power-driven machinery should be nationalized or state-controlled. The supreme consideration is man. Machine should be employed so long as it does not disturb much of the fundamental framework of society and the freedom of the human spirit. There appears to be in the dark clouds some silver lines. Gandhi has a positive mindset and is optimistic. US President Barack Obama, the then President Barack Obama, is on record to have said that the US has its roots in India of Mahatma Gandhi. His teachings and ideals shared the Martin Luther King Jr. transformed civil rights movement. He intended to have dinner with Gandhi. And he is the person who has sent troops to Afghanistan and proposes to send troops to Pakistan to fight the terrorism of Taliban. One does not know whether it is just exercise of force. Then our Home Minister, the then Home Minister P. Chidambaram, said at that time, some years back, when he was the Home Minister, I quote, it is the duty of the majority to protect the minority, unquote. One only hopes that he identifies minority not from the ethnic perspective, but in the economic perspective. Japanese Prime Minister Yuko Hatoyama didn't invoke the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi during his policy speech at the 174th session of the Japanese Parliament to outline the challenges facing Japanese society and the path to their amelioration. Beginning of the speech, Mr. Hatoyama narrated the 7 social sins inscribed at the Rajghat and confessed that he was struck by how Mahatma Gandhi's word incisively pointed to the problems facing Japan and the world today. The moment he stood before the Gandhi Memorial, he resolved to begin his government's major policy speech by narrating the 7 social sins listed by the Mahatma Gandhi. He said, I quote, "He has the economy that sustained the material wealth of the 20th century, made people rich in the true sense of the word and happy. How should we control the excesses of commerce without morality and wealth without work while maintaining a capitalist society? What kind of economy, politics, society, and education are desirable to enable people to live happy lives befitting human beings?" He answered the poser himself by pointing out that, to borrow Gandhi's words, our challenge is to foster the morality of commerce and restore wealth derived from work. Then Mahatma Gandhi's National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme to provide employment for people below poverty line, and Mahatma Gandhi Gramin Basti Yojana to provide free plots of 100 square yards, each to the people of Valmiki community, are certain schemes of the central government. There are certain other schemes of the state government like Odisha Rural Development and Marketing Society or MAS to generate self-employment among the rural mass. In this connection, the institution of SSG and Mission Shakti here in Odisha and similar things elsewhere to empower women need to be mentioned. This was Gandhi's vision. In a letter written to Vijaya Lakshmi Pandit, sister of India's first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, on November 11, 1930, Gandhi emphasized the potential of women power. I quote, "Women have done more work than us. Even so, much remains to be done. The modern world has yet seen the like of India's women power. I am convinced they will go much further ahead, and I will be very surprised if you do not play a very big part in this." The way the term poverty is being defined and the definition disputed, the way in which heavy machinery does the work in villages and bills made in the name of the so-called beneficiaries cast serious doubts about the sincerity in following the ideals of Gandhi. The Suresh Tendulkar Committee has defined the poor based on a normative living standard. It has moved away from the calorie intake on the criterion and considered per capita consumption expenditure on commodities and services. It has laid the threshold per capita consumption expenditure for defining the poor in rural India at rupees 446 rupees per month, and for the poor in urban India as 580 rupees per month. The poverty ratio in India for 2004 and 5 is now estimated at 37.2%, revising the previous estimate at 27.5. For a real change of poverty to power, as it is put in modern idiom, the state needs to be effective, and this is more important. The citizens need to be more active. Thank you very much for your kind attention for all these 60-70 minutes. And thank you for inviting me to participate in this seminar. Thank you very much. Over to you, Deepak.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, sir, for giving a vivid information and knowledge about what is Mahatma Gandhi's dream, and how the people of India, we would not leave mainly 3 concepts. That is, one is we should not leave agriculture, and we should not forget our village, and also youth. We cannot ignore the youth, sir. what I personally receive from your lecture, that the poverty can be eradicated. I don't say that poverty cannot be eradicated, but when the rich will spawn to enrich themselves at the expenses of poor, and the poor will cease to envy the rich. So then I can expect.
Until poverty is eradicated, it should be fairly distributed. There
Yes,
must be
yes,
distinction of poverty.
equitable distribute, not equitable distribute, sir. In your talk, definitely we'll go for discussion, but after this second session. But what Professor Ganesh Prasad Das sir has already elaborated, I just would like to encapsulate what the gist of his lecture. That is, we have listened, that is Swaraj. We cannot forget that self-respect and self-realization and self-reliance. Friends, when let us think that we do have 24 hours with us, and if at the bed, when we are going to bed, if we are not introspect ourselves, if we are not realize ourselves that whatever I did today, whether it is I have given some justice to my fellow beings, my fellow participants, the society in which we live. That is self-realization and self-respect and self-reliance. Really, sir, these are eye-opening words from you, we gather. And also, sir, has also focused on the issue that is machine nowadays is ruling the world, and unemployment of human, that is also the cause of unemployment of human resources. So reason is misplaced, and that is matter. That is reason nowadays. What has been advocated, if you think our Greek philosopher, that the aim is to form a Calipolis. Calipolis means an ideal state. If you think for the concept of Aristotle, that is, he was striving for eudaimonia, happiness. So by adopting the foreign machine and foreign tools, what has been rejected in the foreign countries, so we are telling that these are the waste, and the outdated machines are taken to be granted in India as ultra modern machine. So we must keep with us, and we must start the process of Make in India. We will make our mind Swadeshi. So from this standpoint, we cannot forget Gandhi. So here Gandhi is our ideal. And also, sir has quoted that we cannot accept only Niti. So we must take the hands of Niti and Nyaya. We cannot exclude one of them. If you only focus on Niti, then Niti cannot make democracy. So Niti with Nyaya could save us, could save the earth, I think. And sir also given importance of some constructive thoughts. These are the minimization of competition. And nowadays, if we minimize our competition, production should be need-based, not grid-based. Nowadays, we see that everybody is striving for materialistic pleasure. Even if I do have a sweater, if I do have money, I may procure 10 number of sweater where it is not necessary at all. When a beggar is required, then I should have a heart to donate. There are some sweater with me which is not used by me, for example. So we must restrict our greed, and we must recognize, we must identify our need. That is why production of need, not the greed. So and another factor has very beautifully explained that the dignity of labor. We should not treat labor as a labor, that is a low-graded people. We should respect the dignity of labor, even if he is a sweeper in our college. And we should develop a sense of national feeling. Yes, we are India. We must think for our country. There are so many things really, sir, touched our heart. Finally, duty of the majority is to protect the minority. So it is our duty of the majority to protect the minority. If we do not think in this way, So we will not make a Swaraj or Ram Rajya. What I personally think, sir. So thank you, sir, for your hortatory speech and your reflective words to all the participants present here.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. So may I now request Durga Madhab Praharaj, sir. Let me introduce Durga Madhab Praharaj, sir, because he is our next speaker. So the next speaker is Professor Durga Madhab Praharaj, sir. He has retired from PG Department of Philosophy of Ravensa College, presently University. Has taught philosophy for 45 years in the educational institute of our state, namely Ravensa, Utkal, and GM University, and BJP, Ramadevi, SCS, FM, NC colleges, and UN College of Odaspur. He has obtained doctorate of degree from Utkal University on the topic the conflicting ontology, materialism and spiritualism, and humanism. He also successfully completed UGC minor project on human rights and social justice. 6 scholars have already been awarded PhD degree under his supervision. He has independently authored 5 books in logic and philosophy, including the book on Vedic and Upanishadic philosophy. He is the co-author of the book Bhagavad Gita Darshan, published very recently. He has been one of the author of the 5 logic books published by the Textbook Bureau of Council of Higher Secondary Education, Odisha. He has edited a book on contemporary philosophy and also co-edited another book. Apart from this, he has so many publications in national and international level. He has delivered general presidential address in All Odisha Philosophical Association in the year 2019 at Ravensa University. Without much ado, may I request the man of substance, the friend, philosopher, and guide is very down to earth, and his thoughts works as solid as rock, and he will deliver his topic on Varna Dharma from the perspective of Mahatma Gandhi. So may I request Durga Madhab Praharaj to say a few words and to encourage us in this webinar. Sir, please.
दुर्गा कैमरा आउट के तले रखना ना आपण आउट के ऊपर उठना दी हां एला बढ़िया
नमस्कार
नमस्कार बहुत बढ़िया
Thank you, Deepak. Surely I am audible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are fully audible and visible.
Esteemed President, Padma Shri, Professor Damayanti Madam, Professor Ganesh Prasad Das, adding grandeur to this webinar as the main speaker. Head of the Department of Philosophy, MPC Autonomous College, Mr. Vijay Kumar Padi, Faculty, dear Dr. Deepak Behra, dear viewers, listeners, and lovers of philosophy of this webinar. I am really very much thankful to the PD Department of Philosophy for associating me in this webinar, in this function of Amrita Mahotsav, which is going to be celebrated for 150th Janma Jayanti of Mahatma Gandhi, birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. We all have heard a very enlightened and a very research-oriented, very powerful speech. I have no words to say what kind of speech it was on Gandhi by my speaker and elder brother, Professor G.P. Das. Regarding my speech, I would like to say that for the teachers present here, it will be like the old wine in the new bottle, because there would be nothing very significantly new in my deliberations. Rather, my deliberation will be expository and clarificatory for the students. You all know that my topic of deliberation is Varna Dharma Gandhian perspective. କାହିଁକି ଏମିତି ଗୋଟେ ଟପିକ ମୁଁ ବାଛିଲି? ଗାନ୍ଧୀ ଯୋଉଥିପାଇଁ ବର୍ଣ୍ଣ ଧର୍ମ ଉପରେ ବହୁତ ଗୁରୁତ୍ୱ ଦେଇଥିଲେ, ପ୍ରକୃତରେ ତା ଉଦ୍ଦେଶ୍ୟ କୁଆଡେ ଗଲାଣି ବା କୁଆଡେ ଯାଉଛି? କାଷ୍ଟକୁ, ବର୍ଣ୍ଣକୁ କାଷ୍ଟ ଭାବରେ ନେଇ ବହୁତ ସମସ୍ୟା ଆମ ସମାଜକୁ ସାମ୍ନା କରିବାକୁ ପଡୁଛି। ଯଦି ଆମେ ତାଙ୍କ ପ୍ରତି ଶ୍ରଦ୍ଧା ରଖିଛେ, ତାଙ୍କ ଉଦ୍ଦେଶ୍ୟରେ ଆମେ କିଛି ପାଳନ କରିବାକୁ ଯାଉଛେ, ତାହେଲେ ଏଇ ଜନ୍ମ ଜୟନ୍ତୀ ପାଳନ ଅବସରରେ ଆମେ ତାଙ୍କ ବର୍ଣ୍ଣ ଧର୍ମର ପ୍ରକୃତ ଉଦ୍ଦେଶ୍ୟକୁ ବୁଝିବା, ଯୋଉଠି ସେ କର୍ତ୍ତବ୍ୟ ଉପରେ ମ୍ୟାକ୍ସିମମ୍ ଗୁରୁତ୍ୱ ଦେଇଛନ୍ତି, ଏବଂ ଆମେ ଯଦି ଆମର କର୍ତ୍ତବ୍ୟକୁ ଭୁଲି ନ ଯିବା, ତାହେଲେ ସମାଜର ନିଶ୍ଚିତ ଭାବରେ ମଙ୍ଗଳ ହବ। ଆଜିକାଲି କର୍ତ୍ତବ୍ୟକୁ ମନେ ରଖିବା ଲୋକଙ୍କ ସଂଖ୍ୟା ମୋ ମତରେ ବହୁତ କମ୍। ତେଣୁକରି ଏହି ଅବସରରେ କିଭଳି କର୍ତ୍ତବ୍ୟ ଉପରେ ସେ ଗୁରୁତ୍ୱ ଦେଇଥିଲେ, ତାକୁ ହିଁ କହିବାକୁ ଯାଇ ମୁଁ ଏମିତି ଗୋଟେ ଟପିକ ସିଲେକ୍ଟ କରିଛି। ତାକୁ ଆଉ ଟିକେ ବୁଝେଇକିରି କହୁଛି। ଅନ୍ୟ ଦିଗରୁ it is happening that I sometimes come across criticisms against Gandhi. It has also been pointed out, Professor Das, and instead of realizing what Gandhiji has said good for us, we sometimes take attempt to criticize him. So the criticism which I have come across, about which I am concerned, that some inconsistencies are there between his personal habits and acts in respect of social reformation, taking into account his understanding of Varna Vyavastha of our ancient Indian cultural tradition. In his personal living style, he maintains many of the practices of a theist, whereas he was opposing the caste gradation, which appears to have strong theological or religious sanction behind it. That is their claim. The raised issue can be made more specific in the following manner. Gandhi, as a staunch supporter of Indian cultural tradition, believes in the order of Varna Vyavastha. It is an order which accepts four classes of people in the society. It is seen that in the society, the different classes of people were not treated as equal. Rather, it is seen that Brahmins were treated as superiors and Sudras were considered inferiors in the society. They were not only treated as inferiors, but very often treated as untouchables. It is a fact that as a social reformer, he had fought against many types of social evils, out of which caste discrimination is a significant one. The significant question has been raised in this context that Gandhi, who had aimed at Sarvodaya, social order, and just maximum emphasis on equality, how could accept the order of Varna Vyavastha of the ancient cultural tradition? It becomes a controversial issue for the reason that fourfold Varna Vyavastha invites a sense of gradation, and in this sense, Varna Vyavastha is opposed to the notion of equality. So it appears that he was contradicting himself in accepting Varna Vyavastha in one hand and putting emphasis on equality consideration among men in the other, in order to have Sarvodaya social order on the other. The topic aims at arriving at an answer to this question, that whether he was really inconsistent or the inconsistency claimed against him is apparent one. What can be real picture of his understanding about the concept of Varna Dharma? What message can we receive from his understanding of the concept of Varna Dharma? The attempt for the answers will be taken by analyzing the concept of Varna Dharma and Varna Vyavastha. By knowing that, does Gandhi subscribe to the classical understanding or sociological understanding of Varna Vyavastha, where his theistic practices standing against his mission of fighting against social evils? Let me proceed with the first section with the explanation of the views on the origin of Varnas in our tradition. The first section is origin and analysis of Varna. Being related to Varna, there are two concepts are found to be in use, namely Varna Vyavastha and Varna Dharma. Both do not mean the same thing. Varna Vyavastha stands for the initial division of mankind to different classes or varnas. Varna Dharma stands for the dharma of a particular varna or class. Taking the literal meaning into consideration, the term Varna primarily refers to color. Some scholars of history point out that the initial division of mankind was done on the basis of color to two classes, namely Arya, non-slave, and Dasa, slave. Then, on functional basis, Aryas were divided into three classes, namely Brahmana, Kshatriya, and Vaishya. Offspring from the mixed classes were treated as Jati, and further mixed classes were considered as Upajati. The people of Dasa class on functional basis were treated as Sudraj. The earliest authentic document on the division of mankind to various classes is found in the 10th and 11th verses of Purusha Sukta of the Shukla Yajurveda. The same thing is also present in other Vedas, but I have taken into consideration the verse of Yajurveda. In the 10th verse, the question was asked about the division of Virat Purusha to how many parts. In the next verse, the reply was given by saying, Brahmanasya Mukhamasit Bahu Rajanyakrita Puru Tadasya Jadeshya Padabhyam Sudra Ajayatah. The Brahmins have come out of the mouth, Kshatriyas have come out of the shoulder, Vaishyas has come out of the thigh, and Sudras have come out of the foot. Thus, it is the most authentic record about the division of mankind into four classes, which has been subsequently called as Varna Vyavastha, though the term Varna is not found to be in use. But the term Varna is found to be used in another most popular important scripture, that is the Bhagavad Gita, in the following manner. In the 13th verse of the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna narrates before Arjuna that Chaturvarnam Maya Srishtam Guna Karma Vivagasaha. That is, the four varnas are created by me on the basis of Guna and Karma. Subsequently, it has been made clear Subsequently, in the 18th chapter, from 41st verse to 49th verse, it has been made clear what type of karma duty is assigned to four different varnas. Regarding this verse, in his commentary, Shankara exposes Gita's view to be at par with the Rigvedic view in the words, to quote, the fourfold class, the translation is quoted. The fourfold class comprises the four varnas. They have been ordained by me, the Lord, by the Brahmana was his face, etc. According to the divisions of the constituents and works, or in keeping with the divisions of the constituents and work, the constituents being Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. The same verse has been commented by Ramanuja as, to quote the translation, the whole universe, beginning with Brahma and ending with the cluster of grass, with the system of our four stations divided according to sattva and other gunas, and by actions like self-control corresponding to the gunas was created by me. Following the above line of thinking, a general understanding of the Gita's view of varnas has been developed by Prabhupada, a great scholar of Krishna consciousness, that, quote, the Lord is the creator of everything. Everything is born of him. Everything is sustained by him. And everything after annihilation rests on him. He is therefore the creator of the four divisions of the social order, beginning with the intelligent class of men, technically called Brahmanas, due to their being situated in the mode of goodness. Next is the administrative class, technically being called the Kshatriyas, due to their being situated in the mode of passion. The mercantile men, called Vaishyas, are situated in the mixed mode of passion and ignorance, and the Shudras or laborers class are situated in the ignorant mode of material nature. In this manner, the theological account of the origin of varnas, or the divine to be the source of origin of the varnas, is well accepted by the two most important classical commentators of Gita, namely Shankara and Ramanuja, and a large number of their followers. The major factor with the explanation is that there is the gradation among classes is quite prominent. Not only among the four classes, Brahmanas were treated to be most superior, but the Sudra class has been treated to be slave of other classes of people. In course of time, the faith in such a stand had given scope to create a class of untouchables in the society on the ground that it is the divine desire. Now the next section follows, that is Gandhi as a theist and admirer of Indian classical tradition. There cannot be any doubt that Gandhi was a theist. The factors in support of such a stand are that he has taken birth in a Vaishnava family. Sri Rama was his personal god to whom he was offering prayer every day. Not only he had read the Vedas and Upanishads, he had tremendous faith in the Vedic and Upanishadic knowledge, wisdom. For example, once he has opined that if perchance all the classical literatures of India would be lost and the first verse of the Upanishad is there in the memory and it is followed, then it is enough to save the mankind. Gandhi's admiration for the Bhagavad Gita is almost unquestionable. In this perspective, the so-called above raised inconsistency arises that how Gandhi could went against the Varna Vyavastha that promotes the gradation among people and caste discrimination. Now I switch over to the third section, Gandhian approach to the issue of Varna Vyavastha. ଏହି ସେକ୍ସନରେ ମୁଁ କହିବି ଯେ ଗାନ୍ଧୀ ବର୍ଣ୍ଣ ବ୍ୟବସ୍ଥା ଆଉ ବର୍ଣ୍ଣ ଧର୍ମ ବୋଲି କଣ ବୁଝୁଥିଲେ ଏବଂ ତାଙ୍କ ବୁଝିବାରେ କିଛି ଅସୁବିଧା ଅଛି. Now it is quite important to decide whether the inconsistency claimed against Gandhian approach is real or apparent. For this, it is important to know Gandhi's stand on Varna Vyavastha, Varnashrama Dharma, and Varna Dharma, and his mission of fighting against untouchability. It can be pointed out that Varna Vyavastha conceptually is not opposed to the notion of equality, or the notion of equality can easily be accommodated in the framework of Varna Vyavastha from Gandhian perspective. Neither in the Vedic source nor in the Bhagavad Gita the gradation among Varnas has been mentioned. The gradation consideration is the latter addition by them, those who wanted to lead a privileged life. If there would be the proper understanding of Varna Vyavastha, then one will not find any inconsistency in Gandhian approach to fight against the inequality consideration among different classes of people. It is clear from the thought and action of Gandhi that in the understanding of Varna Vyavastha, he had attached emphasis on Varna Dharma. It is very much clear that though the term Dharma is multidimensional one and has been used in many senses, but here in case of Varna Dharma, it has been used in the specific sense, that is duty. So Varna Dharma stands for the duty of the class. Varna has been derived from the root Vri, means choice or choose. One has to choose his duty to be, one has to choose his duty to be the be all and end all of his life. So far as the views of Mahatma Gandhi is concerned, I would like to present the words of Professor P.I. Devaraj of Kerala that according to Gandhi, Varna means predetermination of the choice of man's profession. The law of Varna is that a man shall follow the profession of his ancestor for earning livelihood. Every child naturally chooses his father's profession. Varna therefore is in a way that law of heredity. It is not a human invention, but an immutable law of nature, the statement of a tendency that is ever present and at work. Gandhi made it clear that Varna prescribes duties and obligations only. The performance of hereditary functions merely means that the kind of duty that has to perform in society has already been settled. This factor of heredity avoids the possibility of rift and strife ensuing from making fresh distribution of work every day. Here Gandhi was asserting that in order to become a Brahmin, it is necessary for a person to reveal the attributes of Brahmin. Otherwise, he ceases to be so. Because of this, Gandhi always related the doctrine of Burma to that of Ashrama Dharma. Gandhi's appreciation of Varna system was based on his faith in the Bhagavad Gita because Lord Krishna said in it that the fourfold system or Chaturvarna was created by him according to the division of qualities, gunas, and functions. Here, it is clear that Varna does not mean that somebody is born high and low. Varna does not give superiority to body simply by birth. I would like to share the view of Professor B.K. Lal uh, what he has mentioned in his book Contemporary Indian Philosophy. Gandhi invariably relates the doctrine of Varna to the Varnashrama Dharma. The notion of Dharma is emphasized very much. Dharma stands for duties, and Gandhi says that every Varna has specific and definite duties or dharmas attached to it. Gandhi believes that if these divisions are understood properly and their implications are fully realized, then a strong and moral society can be built on their basis. In fact, the consideration of Gandhi, Sri Krishna, while establishing the classes, has not utilized his arbitrary power rather than taken need and efficiency into consideration, is evident. In his lectures on the Gita, regarding the understanding of the verse of the Gita, he has mentioned that Sri Krishna has established, not created. He has used the term established. Uh, the four varnas, not classes, castes. Four varnas means four classes, not castes, by different distribution of quality and action. Here, the most important factor is to attaching importance on the expression guna karma vibhagasa. He has felt that the age-old doctrine of Varna Vyavastha of Indian tradition has been wrongly presented and gradually molded in such a manner that big gap has been created between two major classes of people, namely Savarna and Avarna or Asavarna. The former class was constituting the people of the three superior varnas, and the Shudra class of the people were treated as Harijanas or Dalits. The understanding given to this lower class of people that the gradation has been accorded by God, who has created four classes of people from his body, which was a wrong stand given to them, wrong understanding given to them about the Varna Vyavastha. As a result of this understanding, the practice was dominated that the low caste people were not allowed to use public tanks, temples, rituals, educational institutions, and places. Gandhi considered that it is not justified to treat some human being in this inhuman manner. Gandhi realized that such a practice cannot be removed easily by framing laws. He thought the mindset of the people has to be changed. So the trial taken by Gandhi was twofold. He attempted to change the theoretical understanding of the people by going to the root of the problem. He tried to demolish the religious foundation of the practice of untouchability. He tried to prove that such a practice is not recommended by our scriptures or shastras. The gradation among Varnas is wrong interpretation given by some intelligent Brahmins in the latter stage. He himself was convinced and tried to establish that in the eyes of God all are equal, and the division of class mentioned in the scriptures indicate the differences among the classes on the basis of duties to be performed. All types of duties are equally religious, and there is no scope for gradation. In this manner, he attempted to demolish the religious foundation of Varna Vyavastha. The second one is he also started following the equal treatment in the practice in his own ashrama as well as in the surroundings. He was we all have realized that he was a practical idealist, so he has also put his views into practice. He opened schools for them. He gave them place in his ashram and treated them at par with others. He fought with others to give them entry to the temples and using the public places. He attempted for the improvement of their economic conditions. Later on, many other social reformers were also taken up the issue seriously, and subsequently, tremendous success was achieved in this front. According to Gandhi, the Varna Vyavastha meant for the division of labor basing on the Varna Dharma. The Dharma of each Varna is equally important for the growth of a society. No one should be given higher importance, and there need not be any ground for any kind of gradation among them. Varna Vyavastha postulates an equal status of all professions. In his consideration, in case of talking about Sarvodaya movement, he has said, a lawyer's work has the same value as the barber's, in as much as all have the same right of earning their livelihood from their work. And a life of a laborer, that is the life of the tiller of the soil and the handcraftsman, is the life of the worth living. In no part of his life he had made a distinction between two human beings on the grounds of caste. So he was never in support of the consideration that someone is untouchable for someone. In his personal life, he rejected untouchability from the very beginning, as early as 1905. During 1909, he has publicly rejected the notion that there are high and low castes. He was a votary of eradication of caste system and the social evil like the practice of untouchability. It is notable that Gandhi wrote in Harijan that caste has to go. Just before, Ambedkar wrote about the annihilation of caste in 1936. For nearly 9 months, that is between November 1933 and August 1934, against untouchability, he has conducted intensive crusade throughout the country. In 1934, he asserted that he will not hesitate to denounce Hinduism if its Shastras will insist on the division between Savarna Hindu and Avarna Hindu. The religion is untouchable. The religion with untouchability is like a cup of poison for him. He has taken attempt to exclude the caste gradation from his religion. He considered that if untouchability will go, then caste system will go. So he concentrated on removing the practice of untouchability wherever he has witnessed. From the above renderings and analysis, it can be said that Gandhi was never inconsistent in his thought and action in admiring the importance of the scriptures and fighting against the social evil like caste discrimination or gradation. Rather, his emphasis on the performance of duty on the class is highly beneficial for the growth of the society. Thanking you all. I think I will end here because it has already exceeded 5 p.m.
Hello. 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 Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, you are audible.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, sir. It was really a nice presentation. on Varna Dharma Gandhian perspective. Let me just introduce some of the keynotes what has Professor Praharaj sir just explained in his beautiful talk, that is Varna Dharma Gandhian's perspective. He is an ardent critics of Gandhi. Initially, what is reflected, that is his critical analysis, that how if Gandhi is talking about equality and Gandhi is talking about we all are equal. So at the same time, at the same pace, in the same path, how he is supporting Varna Dharma, Varna, that is the division. So very beautifully, sir explains that he opposed Gandhi opposed at the one side Gandhi opposed gradation, and the another side Gandhi is accepting that is Varna. So in the course of his deliberation, we noticed that it is the need, it is the it is for the benefit of the community, for the benefit of the humanity. It is highly essential for division of labor. So even if we are residing in a house, if we are serving in a college, so if a sweeper will not sweep, a teacher will not teach, and a principal and administrator will not administrate, then the institution will not run smoothly. From that perspective, division of labor is highly essential, sir. Varna, according to Varna, that is, even if there are, from the standpoint of Rig Veda, that is Brahmana, Kshatriya, and Vaishya, Sudra, we are divided. The division is only to understand that we have some function, we have some works for the betterment of the community. That is why it has been divided. It does not mean that a person who, it means if you deserve, then definitely you will not put yourself in a specific category, that is Varna. You will not be entitled as Sudra. If you do have some knowledge, if you do have some ability and capability, definitely will come up with the higher grade. That is, you may be recognized in the society, even if you are a son of rickshawala and you have knowledge, then you can qualify IS. So Gandhiji is accepting the Varna from standpoint of division of labor. Also, he has quoted from Praharaj sir, also quoted the version of Prabhupada. Lord is the creator of everything. Lord is the creator of four division, for goodness, for passion, ignorance, and ignorance is the mode of the last, that is Sudra, ignorant. And it is our duty, let them put some light from the perspective of the view of Mahatma Gandhi ji. So thank you, Praharaj sir, for your nice and vivid and reflective explanation and elaboration. And the platform is completely open for discussion. If any participant wants to ask something, then he or she can write in the chat box, and also he or she can put directly question by switching on his the mic. So the platform is open.
Deepak,
yes, sir.
There is already a question addressed to me.
Yes,
in
sir.
the chat box.
Yes.
Pragyan Daskanu asks, how is Gandhi's concept of duty is a different form or similar with the conception of Kant and Bradley? Let me say here.
Yes, sir. Please.
That there is already a comparison of the Western perspective and the Indian perspective in my presentation. Now, if we go to Bradley, we find the idea in his your station and your duty. And in Kant, a categorical imperative, duty for the sake of duty. I have already said that according to his own admission, Gandhi is not an academic philosopher. So he is not expected to read Kant and Bradley to articulate his ideas. If we as research scholars put the three on the same plane, then we will find that if Bradley would emphasize that your session and your duty, or duty for the duty's sake, that is Kant, then we would say that Gita's conception of duty is so wide that it takes in its sweep the conceptions of Kant and Bradley. And I have told in so many words that the Western perspective is a constructed one, it is a narrow one. It does not spread over the whole of humanity, not only the whole of humanity, it does not spread over the whole of humanity and the non-living things also. Whereas the Indian conception spreads over all the created things of the world, that praja. Prakrustena jato iti praja. So everything that is there in nature, be it biological creation or non-biological creation, everything, the human being will act in such a way that it is in the interest of it, it is in the hita of everything and every being. So in this way, he would take both Kant and Bradley in his stride. Dr. Praharaj has already mentioned Isopanishads adage, Isavasamidam sarvam jatkincha jagatyang jagat tena tyaktena banjita. That is the ideal. He said that if everything is forgotten, save the first line or first verse, then things will be in proper place. That is right. And we would say that that ideal, which is enshrined in the Upanishads and in the Gita, is so wide, so pervasive, that it takes in its stride, not to speak of the utilitarians, but even of the universalists like Bradley and Kant. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. If any other question do you have in your mind, dear participants, you may directly ask to Ganesh sir and Praharaj sir. Hello, Ranjit Ghosh sir is here. Definitely, may I request Ranjit sir, if you have some observation?
Yes, thank you, Deepak. I could not listen to Professor Gipida's lecture. John late probably could not hear him properly. But one thing, it comes to me, if we take Gandhi in the present setup, then what Gandhi will suggest for? It is self-reliance or poverty alleviation. Which, suppose Gandhi is present now, what he will suggest? Self-reliance or poverty alleviation? Because here, in this case, as I believe, that self-reliance will be the means for achieving the poverty alleviation. So, if we make certain laws for the poverty alleviation without emphasizing on self-reliance, then that will make no sense. Of course, government is saying that it is trying to make people self-reliant. But the thing is that all those considerations are based on electoral politics only, because they actually do not want to make people self-reliant. So this is one observation. And the other thing what Deepak was referring, I also subscribe to the view of Professor Das. Nyaya and Niti, these two Gandhi is actually emphasizing on both these two things. But again, putting into practice, these things are not actually gaining any momentum. These two observations I have made on Professor Das' speech. Now, coming to Professor Praharaj, here also I would like to say one thing, that Gandhi has been put into criticisms by his supporting the Varnashrama Vyavastha. And in South, we know that Narayana Guru, a Vedantin, he was against this Varnashrama Vyavastha. Now, taking Gandhi into consideration, Gandhi says that classical Hinduism, that is Vedic, where Vedic in the Vedas we find this Varna Vyavastha, and actually when it came down to Manusmriti, actually Manu made all the mistakes. This was the view of Gandhi, and therefore Gandhi suggested that Bhagavad Gita is rather much more acceptable so far as the Varna Vyavastha is concerned, as Professor Praharaj has also mentioned about this, because Gandhi was always referring to this Anasakti Yoga, and this is the sum and substance of Gandhi uses this. I don't know where my message is my work. This is what he says. That means he was always trying to bridge the gulf between theory and practice. So when accepting Gita's point of view, we find that Gandhi rejects the hierarchical situation in the Varna Vyavastha. Rather, he suggests that one's ability can elevate him to another caste. Now, one thing is important in this case. Suppose I'm giving you one example. Suppose a Sudra wants to become a priest. Then what he should do? He should not leave his own where the own profession of his birth, and he should act as a priest, but he is not supposed to take any dakshina, because it is the prerogative of the Brahmins. So Gandhi at times is trying to give certain situations which in the modern day parlance appears to be very, we are not sure about these things. So because one thing is important in Gandhi, and that's why he is remembered, that during his lifetime, he always tried to see the situations in the evolving manner. That means nothing is final, nothing was final to him. He was always trying to accommodate new ideas, and that was the situations. So these two are the observations I have made on Professor Das and Professor Praharaj's view. We can further discuss on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your observation and your comment. If any participant would like to ask or give any comment, so they may proceed, please.
सर यदि प्रिंसिपल मैडम अवेलेबल है तो कोई भी एड्रेस करिए अपन
ठीक है सर ठीक है प्रिंसिपल मैडम को सर बोल रहे हैं
दीपक आउ तो कार किसी पचारिबार नहीं ते प्रिंसिपल देखो थिबे तांको दीपक कहंतु କଣ୍ଟାକ୍ଟ ଦୀପକ
हाँ बस सर फोन करछि तो से गोटे एमफिल रो भाई भाई जितले से मीटिंग रो छन
ठीक है
माने रिंग होछि से कोन जेते फोन कोन
ठीक अच्छे आउ तो पचार डिस्कस नहीं गला आ तो कि दबार नहीं धन्यवाद दे दिए पळेवा आ
हाँ ठीक है सर मो आई रिक्वेस्ट कि अपन मन भीतर आसी I request Vishnu Priya Singh, lecturer in philosophy, MPC Autonomous College, to offer a vote of thanks to the August gathering, the virtual participants, all the virtual participants who are here. I request Vishnu Priya Madam to come and offer a vote of thanks to all the participants, including the other.
because जने पार्टिसिपेंट लिखचंती जे जो देइथलो लिंक ता सबमिट करिया पे से पार्टिसिपेंट फॉर्म ना कोन सेटा नौनी से देखो
हां सर फीडबैक फॉर्म ता एटा तो माने
नौनी से साइड
देखि सेलोनी आसी गेला ठीक है मु तो कंप्लाई कर देबी सर किछ नै
कर दे विष्णु प्रिया
हां ओवर टू विष्णु प्रिया मैडम ठीक है
Good evening, sir. And I take this opportunity to express my heartfelt thanks to our beloved principal, madam. And thank you, sir, for your valuable and interesting address. I would like to thank our distinguished speaker, Honorable Professor Ganesh Prasad Das, sir, and Honorable Professor Durga Madhab Praharaj, sir, for making excellent presentation and making webinar a very meaningful and interesting. And I would like to express our deep gratitude to the Honorable Sri Vijay Kumar Padi sir, HOD of Philosophy Department, and I am very thankful to the Honorable Dr. Deepak Kumar Behra sir, the coordinator of this webinar, for the coordination, and I am also thankful to the Honorable Mrs. Joyasri Kumar madam and faculty philosophy, and also thankful to the Honorable Vishwamitra Rana sir, lecturer of MCA department, and Sri Ashish Kumar Dhara sir, the faculty member of MCA department. And I am very thankful to all the distinguished teachers, participants, and also the student participants who are directly or indirectly helped to make the program or the event very successful. And thank you all for being with us, and it is an honor for us that you all being with us. I am very thankful to you, and again and thank you to all, and have a good evening, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. तम तरफ रु रंजीत सर को धन्यवाद दे दूँ संगना नेलनी चेते ऑब्जर्वेशन देले
I am sorry, sir, for that. Ranjit sir को भी sir thank you again. Sorry, sir.
Thank you.
Anyway, sir, this is the beginning of our department. We're trying our level best in the upcoming days. If something wrong you have noticed in this webinar, please excuse us and improve us, sir. Under your guidance, we will improve. If we improve, definitely the philosophy department will improve, and the students of philosophy will learn something, whether it is not directly but indirectly. But we have to depend on, nowadays we have to depend on the virtual world. And last but not the least, I request head of the department of philosophy on behalf of our principal madam, he will announce the meeting is to be ended with as Vishnu Priya madam has already offered her vote of thanks. I do take permission of our president of this session on behalf of our principal, as our principal is not present due to some reason. So I request Vijay Kumar Padi sir to end the meeting. Padi sir, please.
Thank you all concerned. Now this national webinar is over.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
ଆଉ ସାର୍ ରହିଲି ସାର୍ ମାନେ ନମସ୍କାର ଆମେ ଦେଖା ହବା ଆଉ କେତେବେଳେ କଥା ହବା
ଆଲୋ କିଛି ନାହିଁ ଯେ ତମେ ଚା କପଟା ସେଠି ଦେଖେଇ ଦଉନ ଟିକେ
all the participant may I take leave hello
yes sir
ଓହୋ ଏଠି ଗୋଟେ ମୋର ଶୁଭୁନି ठीक है shall we take leave or dear all participants
thank you so much thank you very much for inviting
Namaskar.
us and giving all the treats in the negative ତାହା ଦେଲ ନାହିଁ ଭୁଜିଆ ଦେଲ ନାହିଁ ଏଗୁଡ଼ା ସବୁ ପାଇଁ ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ
the entire world is metaverse now